maybe I'll start easing us into this session, into this seminar. So my name is Marta Talevi, and I'm here on behalf of the Sustainable Energy Transitions Initiative, or SETI, which is part of Environment for Development, to chair this seminar and introduce our speaker today, which is Dr. Salama Witt-Kebede. Salama Witt is the postdoctoral research fellow of the SETI initiative within EFD. And she's also a research fellow with UNICEF, as well as a senior researcher at the Policy Studies Institute in Ethiopia. And her research focuses on energy, women's empowerment, and spans a range of interdisciplinary research areas and many different geographical contexts, especially in the African continent. So we're very fortunate, very lucky and proud to have Salama Witt today presenting. So the floor is yours, and yeah, I'll share the Q&A afterwards. So please, as you listen, think of questions to engage with Salama Witt.
Okay, thank you very much, Marta, for the generous introduction. And then thank you everyone for joining the webinar and then for having time to attend the session. So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening as well. So before starting the session, I would like to share my screen and then I will move on within a minute or two. Can you see my slide?
Yeah, all good.
Okay. So thank you very much again. Before starting the presentation, I would like to do some acknowledgements, which to begin with is the SIDA, which funded our project while we were being enrolled at the Early Career Fellowship, 20 of us from the Global South EFD centers. And then we've got the chance to write for a proposal, and we have a call, and then SIDA has been generous enough to fund us through EFD, and then I would like to acknowledge SIDA. And the same is true for EFD Global Hub, which initiated and then gave us the opportunity to join the fellowship program and then to engage in a lot of courses, provided that one of the deliverable of the fellowship program is to, it was a competitive for 20 of us, and then we managed to beat and then get this funding. So we also would like to acknowledge EFD Global Hub, mainly Gunnar, because he was leading the Global Hub, and then EFD, the network in general. I would also like to give a credit to all who has been there during the fellowship and then supporting the write-up and then engaged with the project in our case. Then I'll go to the specific topic of our project, which is energy efficiency, innovation, and productivity, provided that we mainstream gender dynamics on it. And we have case studies in East and West Africa. So before I deeply go through the presentation, I would like to acknowledge my co-authors, Laura from EFD Nairobi or Kenya, and then we have Frank and then Moonyo from EFD Ghana. They were fellows, and then they are also co-authors. And then if it was not for our teamwork and then engagement and then the contribution of the co-authors, we wouldn't have managed to deliver. So I'm presenting this finding on behalf of my team and the co-authors, as I was the lead of the project. So to begin with the study countries, we have Ethiopia, Kenya, Ghana, and Nigeria. Two, Ethiopia and Ghana representing East Africa, and then Ghana and Nigeria representing West Africa. And in terms of the project report, we have a big report submitted to the Global Hub. And then while we were engaged, we have 7 chapters for the project. We wanted to be as exhaustive as possible. We just didn't want to bring the data and then do the analysis and then give a finding and application. Rather, we really wanted to build and then characterize their performance, policy context, and then also benchmark the best practice from the global north and global south, different countries of global south. So it has been framed as we have introduction, and then we characterized the manufacturing firm, and then also innovation in East and West Africa, the energy use, firm production, productivity, the gender aspect. In East and West Africa, we also try to see how the policy dynamics is. So we characterized the policy context in Ethiopia. Same is true in Kenya, Ghana, and Nigeria. And we also benchmarked best practice from European countries in terms of their energy efficiency, innovation, and productivity, provided that we also have tried to see how they manage gender as well along the way. We have countries from Latin America, Asia, the MENA, and then we try to take a lesson from the global best practices. And we have a methodology which we began with conceptual framework, analytical framework, and then we have empirical strategy, provided that we summarized and then exhaustively explained the data source and then how we constructed the variables, which is explicitly presented on our report. So we have then the results and then discussion, provided that we focused on the key variables of interest, or the research question, which is to link innovation with energy efficiency, and then energy efficiency with productivity, and then mainstream gender across 3 variables on the study countries. And then we have concluding remark and policy implication. And another important thing is not everyone has time to read on the bulky report. So we targeted key stakeholders and then global initiatives to have a summarized version of the key findings on the variables of interest that we made an exercise with. So we have a research brief published in February 2025, which is another deliverable apart from the research report. We also have a discussion paper which has been commented by reviewers, and then we worked on rigorously on the comments and then resubmitted, and then on the pipeline to be published as a discussion paper. So summarized and then key points highlighted, and then a little bit different from the big report, and then more of article based. Having this, I will proceed to the key findings based on our study, which is framed as follows. So to begin with, we started with the economy of African continent, and then it has been on average growing with 3.8 or 4% on 2022. And we have East and West Africa. In this case, we selected East and West Africa as we have tried to characterize. We haven't picked from North or South, which they have different characteristics in terms of innovation, manufacturing firm, and then other factors, so that we mainly focused on East and West Africa as a study case in sub-Saharan African countries. And based on the characterization, agriculture dominates and persists to be as a main engine of their growth, provided that the share of value-added industry has showed an increment provided that is a small base. The literature has established that we have a strong base of industry, or as Roderick and then Calderon and the others suggest, we say the industrialization pattern is strong, or we don't have deindustrialization when industry, mainly manufacturing, has 20 or 25% contribution to the GDP, and then huge contribution to the employment, and then the export and other sectors. But as you can see, the contribution is very low, provided that it has an incremental pattern. In terms of the subsector in the industry, it is categorized. Industry is very general, and then manufacturing is one subsector out of it. And it, in our case, or in our study country case, manufacturing or light manufacturing has been dominating, contributing to the GDP value added, provided that we have food processing industry accounts the lion's share in the respective study countries, Ethiopia, Kenya, Ghana, and Nigeria. Another important thing, while compiling their structure, policy, strategy, regulations also, we've noticed that manufacturing industry remains a policy focus and investment focus of the economic transformation plan to the respective countries, which makes them comparable to do our analysis. And having said that, which means if manufacturing is very critical, focus of policy, investment, and engagement, and then literature from the Global North also documents the same fact, energy use and innovation again plays a key role for the development of manufacturing, this is also documented in the literature. And we also have tried to see the current state of energy infrastructure in the industry on those 30 countries. And we have in Ethiopia the production from hydro and gasoline, and then Kenya, likewise, we have Ghana and Nigeria. They have the resources provided that manufacturing utilizes energy as a source in the production process, provided that there are inefficiency and then unreliability of energy supply across the countries, which makes it or initiates the study to be critical, which we've engaged and then come up with key findings based on the data. Another important thing that we want to see, we don't want to replicate what has been done by others for the sake of doing research. Instead, we really want to learn what has been done in terms of variable of interest. So we have innovation has been documented to be a potential to improve energy use efficiency in the literature. And then there is also a lot of literatures documenting the fact that energy efficiency and also innovation will augment manufacturing productivity, provided that those literatures or evidences were using data from the global north or the Western country that it overlooks to show the context of the developing country in terms of their infrastructure, in terms of their energy, in terms of the manufacturing performance, and then other factors, so that the empirical evidence in sub-Saharan Africa found to be scantily available, which motivates us to do this specific investigation. So what we've done is, instead of replicating some studies, has been the here and there, provided that they try to see relationship of variable of interest, but to our knowledge, we couldn't find a research which is more of multidimensional, that tries to see the perspective of energy efficiency, innovation, productivity, provided that gender being mainstreamed at a manufacturing sector level, or firm being the unit of analysis. So to make it brief, or for the sake of using time optimally, we come to the research questions. So in this study, we wanted to address three basic questions. One, we want to see if innovation really has a contribution to the energy efficiency of manufacturing enterprises in the study country. The other is to see what is the role of energy efficiency on manufacturing productivity. And the third pillar question is, what is or how is gender mainstreamed on energy efficiency, innovation, productivity nexus of the manufacturing enterprises on the study countries. So in terms of methodology, to show briefly, conceptually, we have a literature. This conceptual framework is complemented by existing literature and evidence. So what we have is, we have firm innovation, which it can be product, process, interacted with, market, different types of innovation. So they will argument, theoretically, it's believed that though it varies based on empirical evidence of different contexts of countries across the globe, firm innovation will augment efficiency. And we have a case where efficiency will contribute to firm productivity of different version, which is technical productivity, and then also labor, or it can be capital. And what we have, the other is, we also have literature that documents firm innovation or technology adoption, arguments for productivity. So the channel is either it could be direct or more of indirect. that in our case, what we try to do is we brought the relationship between firm innovation and firm productivity, making the energy efficiency to be the mechanics of relationships, so that firm innovation will augment efficiency and then efficiency will augment productivity. So that's what we want to empirically see, what the data tells us in terms of this relationship, instead of trying to see firm innovation linking it firm productivity, which we've done it in other papers, me being also author of this paper with my colleagues. Another important thing that we introduced is firm can be owned by male or it can be by female. So we can bring gender into using different indicators, but we know that data and then indicators are constrained in terms of showing inclusivity or showing gender, provided that in our case, as much as the data allows us, we try to see firms that are owned by female, majority of female, and then firms that are owned by majority of male. And then we try to bring on board by separately estimating the relationship between firm innovation with efficiency for female-owned firms, and then efficiency with firm productivity of full female-owned firms, and then try to see if statistically indicating something or not. So we have this as a conceptual starting point. So next step is to have analytical framework to do the relationship of analysis. So we have two steps for studying the relationship between energy efficiency and innovation. The first thing that we do is, energy efficiency can be proxied. The literature has established that we can proxy energy efficiency using different indicators. It can be energy intensity, energy productivity, or different energy efficiency variables that we'll discuss later on. But of the different variables, the literature establishes that it will be more strong and robust to see and then estimate energy efficiency score and then see the relationship of variable of interest, whether it's with innovation or productivity. So what we've done is we estimated using the stochastic frontier analysis the energy efficiency score based on the Wang and then the other authors. And then the second step is to regress efficiency on innovation. We have product, process, the interaction, and then other control variables, which this is our first objective. We really want to know if innovation has a contribution in terms of boosting energy efficiency or not. So the second regression will give us or addresses our first objective. Then the other objective is to see the relationship between energy efficiency and productivity. So we use CDM model, provided that we have whole extending that. What we have is it tries to link innovation with productivity, but after different equations, and then including or substituting one into the other, which we end up in regressing. We have productivity as a function of energy efficiency, and then we try to see how productivity in its different version is related with energy efficiency. And then we have a constraints that we acknowledge. It can be measurement bias and then other factors, and then we try to correct for that by sampling weights and then including time, country dummies, and then as much as possible we try to control the variable to get reliable estimates out of the regression analysis. So in terms of data and variable, we use the World Bank Enterprise Survey data from 2007 to 2018. We have Ethiopia, Kenya, Ghana, and Nigeria as case studies for East and West Africa, respectively. And variables and measurement are, we have firm characteristics, firm size, industry age, ownership capacity, firm performance. We have sales, profit, value-added employment, and then the others. And we have innovation, which is product innovation, process innovation, and then the interaction. And then gender, we have female employment, female management, female ownership. And then we have energy use efficiency in terms of average time of total power outage per month, proportion of electricity from generator loss due to power outage. Most of the literatures, they say that they want to see variable relationship between energy efficiency and other indicators, provided that in some studies we might find that average time of total power outage per month being proxied for energy efficiency to see the relationship with other variables. Likewise, for proportion of electricity from a generator. Same is true for loss due to power outage. So different researchers has used different indicators. They try to come up with combining, and also, so in our case, those has been done by other researchers. We brought it here just to characterize and then see the patterns, but we try to estimate the score so that which will be our contribution in the study and see the relationship, which is more of multidimensional innovation, efficiency, and then productivity and gender being on board. In terms of data visualization, so the first thing that we've done is we want to see what type of manufacturing firms are there for the study countries over time, and then how it's been patterning. So producing electrical machinery is different from the implication, and the spillover in the economy is different. So we want to see what type of manufacturing industry are dominating those countries. We found out that food and products and beverage are the most dominated one, provided that it varies a little bit across the countries. So we try to portray how the manufacturing firms are classified across the countries over time. Another important thing that we want to see is firm size, related with economy of scale, and then ownership type is very critical, because when a foreign FDI comes on board, we have the advantage of knowledge transfer, technology transfer when owned by local firms. So we just wanted to see what type of firms are available for those countries. And then we learn about their patterns, and then the firm size, what type of firms. Small is when they have less than 20 employees, medium is when they have 20 to 99, and then large is when more than 100 and over. So for study countries, we have small being dominating for most, or for Ethiopia. We have also Ghana. Same is true for Nigeria, provided that in Kenya we find also large firms, considerable or large manufacturing firms. And in terms of the ownership, we see that domestic has been dominating across the countries, which has its own implication that we need more of FDI for the knowledge and technology adoption, if to give implication, provided that no relationship or correlation has been done at this stage. Another important is the product and process innovation, because innovation is one core variable. We want to see the pattern in terms of product innovation and process. Ethiopia, over the study period, it's been the same. And then the number of firms that introduced product innovation and number of firms that introduced process innovation. In case of Kenya, we have an increment, and then also reverse it back a little bit in terms of product. We have the case of Ghana, it has an increment pattern, but differently increment pattern of both innovation. In the case of Nigeria, provided that process innovation. Ethiopia, the same. Kenya, a little bit leftward, and then we have Ghana, an increment in both cases, which seems like same proportion. Another important dynamics that we want to see energy use efficiency across the countries over the years. So we have electrical outage number per month. For Ethiopia, we have an increment from 6 to 13. Ghana, we have 9.5, a little bit increment, 9 to 9.7. Kenya, 5.3, 6.4, 4.8 increment, and then a decline. And then Nigeria, we have 26.6 and the 33, a little bit increment. So in some studies, they use this to indicate energy efficiency variable, and then resulting loss out of the annual sales. We have the mean as well, increasing in Ethiopia, and then we have Ghana, an increment, and in Kenya, likewise, is the same as true in Nigeria. And then electricity from diesel generator has been a little bit declining across the countries. In terms of the labor input, we have permanent full-time workers, proportion of production workers, top management sector experience. So for 4 countries over the years, so we try to characterize, because most of the manufacturing firms are more of labor intensive, which is complemented by our regression analysis as well. So we have full-time in case of Ethiopia, an increment pattern, and then we have in Ghana, likewise in Kenya, it's been declining. In Nigeria, we've been encountering with an increment, and in terms of proportion of production workers, in Ethiopia has been declining, in Ghana has been declining as well. In terms of pattern trend, no causal relationship yet, declining pattern or trend. Likewise for Nigeria, top manager sector, we have in Ethiopia, experience has been increasing on average, and in Ghana, we have a little bit declining, in Kenya increasing, afterwards also declining, so more of cyclic, and then in Nigeria, it's increasing, but on average, smaller than the other countries. And in the case of Kenya, it's been increasing, but it has decreased after some time, might be due to turnover or so, but we couldn't say, as this is just patterning the data. In terms of the gender difference, we have female-owned and female-managed manufacturing firms. So in Ethiopia, over the years, it's been more or less same, a little bit declining, and the number of firms managed by females, majority of females, has been declining, and of which Ghana has a huge share in relative sense, provided that in Kenya, in terms of female-owned and then female-managed, the pattern has been encouraging and increasing, provided that we only have a data point for Nigeria, which is less than for the female-managed compared to the female-owned, provided that they have a different pattern over the years. So the first thing to do is you construct the variable and then try to see the descriptive variable. So I'm not going to explain this, but we have the important variables to do the analysis, the different estimation or the different models that we constructed: value added, productivity, labor input, capital input, raw material, age, and then all the details are there with their statistics, mean, max, and then n as well. So the first thing that we've done, we mentioned that we estimated the energy efficiency score. So we've done the first regression. In that case, we have labor input being statistically significant and positive, indicating the firms are more of labor intensive. We have a case where ownership is positive, significant, and then foreign contributes to more of the productivity on those firms, which is complemented by existing literature. We controlled 4 years, we controlled 4 countries to control for heterogeneity. And we also have a box plot for technical efficiency of the countries, provided that Ghana is beating the rest, provided that we have Ethiopia and Kenya on average on the same level, and then we have Nigeria in between, based on the box plot of the technical efficiency or energy efficiency. Another important point, this is our first objective of the study, which is to see if innovation promotes or demotes energy efficiency on the study countries based on the constructed data. So as you can see, we have a case where innovation in general is positive and then statistically significant, which is something interesting that we empirically managed to show innovation is important for energy efficiency based on our variable construction and then definition of variables or so, which is complemented by existing evidence, provided that we have innovation is significant, has a significant impact for Ghana and Kenya, but it's different for different countries, which we can see country and survey here, heterogeneity is there. We have seen that sector-specific management experience hurts energy efficiency by definition. We don't expect this, but while implementing, we might have a case where the institutional framework and then the leadership style and then how things are implemented and then organized is different for different institutions and then countries, so that we might come across with this kind of things in reality. And then we have firm size also has negative effect, and then gender in a soft definition in this case, which is firm with female ownership, does not seem to be statistically significant, which is one and then simple indication, provided that we have estimation on the next slides specific to gender. Another important objective is to show productivity and energy efficiency relationship. So productivity, technical factor productivity, and then we also have capital and the labor productivity. In our case, firm energy efficiency is found to be positively and statistically significant to argument the different versions of productivity based on this data. So we have labor productivity, capital productivity, and technical factor productivity is also positive, or energy efficiency has positive contribution and statistically significant, provided that maximum effect is being revealed on capital productivity. And we also have firms' ownership structure also had influence on productivity, provided that female top manager had negative effect on productivity. We were surprised because mainstreaming gender was something critical that we were curious to learn about, and then we just tried to search for the discussion section if that's true. And then in not only in manufacturing, most global south and then different sectors, though they managed to lead, we might have a case where it might not it might not have statistically positive effect complemented by the literature, which might need an intervention in terms of capacitating also. But this is another version of the female top manager based on the data that we constructed, and then the specific time periods, it has a negative impact, provided that country and survey year heterogeneity is also revealed in this case. Our main interest, which is the third objective of the project, is to mainstream gender and then see energy efficiency, innovation, productivity, and their empirical nexus. So we started with characterizing. We tried to see share of manufacturing firms, with female being top manager for Ethiopia, Ghana, Kenya, Nigeria, participation in ownership for those countries, majority ownership, and then want to see the share over time. And then the key takeaways are female participation in both manufacturing firm ownership and management of firms remains very low. And we also found that largest participation of females in firm ownership was recorded for Ghana, while the smallest was recorded for Nigeria. And only Kenya showed progress in terms of female ownership participation, as it's indicated on the characterization. Another point that we wanted to show is energy efficiency and innovation relationship, as we've done it for the general one earlier. Now we wanted to make it more of gender mainstream. So we categorized the firms into male majority ownership and the firms with female majority ownership. Then we tried to see how innovation has an implication on energy efficiency. And the key takeaways based on the estimation is innovation, whether product-based or process-based, does not have statistically significant impact for explaining energy efficiency among female-owned manufacturing firms. And we have number of full-time employees had a negative effect on energy efficiency of female majority-owned firms, and then firm size has positive and increasing effect on energy efficiency for female-owned enterprises in our study. Another critical point of discussion, again, is to see how efficiency and different versions of productivity are linked, provided that now our focus is on female-owned manufacturing enterprises. And in this case, we've done the same technical regression, provided that we focus on if there is a difference when firms are owned by majority female and then when firms are owned by majority male, so that if we can attribute something to female ownership in this case. And energy efficiency was an important variable in firm productivity consistently across productivity measure, provided that productivity effect of energy efficiency were lower compared to same coefficients for male-owned firms. So though we found the relationship while doing the comparison of the counterparts, we found that it's a little bit less yet positive and statistically significant. So we started with mainstreaming on trying to see the relationship between innovation, energy efficiency, productivity, and we want also to mainstream gender and then do the same exercise and see how majority ownership of majority ownership being by females, and then try to characterize if there is a difference that can be attributed to gender. And then of the different exercises, on we found that innovation is very critical to augment energy efficiency, and then energy efficiency promotes or augments productivity, but it varies. Or we found less or soft reasons of attributing gender and then mainstreaming it across the different variables of interest. So to conclude, both labor and capital had positive and significant effect on firm value added, with labor being more elastic than capital, this is really valid in developing countries. Same is true in the study countries, because as you've seen, food and beverage industry is dominating the manufacturing, and then they are more of labor intensive, so the data is speaking the truth. And then foreign owned firms had higher value added than domestically owned firms, and then this is very true. They have the advantage of technology, advantage of knowledge, expertise, so that this will augment production and productivity. And then this is also true, and then in complement with existing evidence in different countries. Energy efficiency did not vary much across our study countries, but they varied across years. And we also have the effect of innovation was nuanced, that of the different innovation definition, product innovation was important variable. Another important note that we had, top manager experience and firm size had negative effect on energy efficiency. We found the literature, but we haven't expected that. We assume that top management, or the more experienced the managers, the better will be the performance of the firm or anywhere else. So against our expectation. And we have energy efficiency had a positive and significant effect on productivity as its form of TFP, capital productivity, and labor productivity. In terms of our gender, female participation in both manufacturing firm ownership and then management was very low in all 4 countries. For firms with female majority ownership, both labor and capital did not seem to play statistically significant role in firm value added. And we also found that female-owned firms were less energy efficient compared male-owned firms. And we also have innovation does not seem to have any effect on energy efficiency among female-owned firms. And energy efficiency was consistently positively important in explaining the change in firm productivity across our different regression exercise we made. So we have a lot of implication on the document and the discussion papers, yet to make it a compact based on our data. Across those countries, and then those countries who have similar contexts, innovation is very critical in explaining manufacturing sector. Apart from other factors, it's not that only innovation, but other factors out there. But our evidence shows that innovation is important. Investing in improving the reliability and quality of the electricity supply is also critical. As I've mentioned from the inception, that our document is really bulky, that we characterized energy capacity, the energy pattern, the supply, the policy, and everything, and then reliability and quality has been a challenge. So that we need to invest a lot on those study countries. Same is true similar countries on the globe in the global south, and then a gender gap and barrier has been revealed in our study specific to variable of interest in manufacturing firm in terms of ownership and management, and this needs a focused attention in terms of empowerment, and then fully utilizing the leadership skill and then participation in terms of employment and everything, so that we contribute to the innovation, same as through energy efficiency and then productivity. Having said that, I would like to thank EFD and SETI, provided that we have a funding acknowledgement and a disclaimer. Project is funded by SIDA under EFD project MS 1473, and then views expressed are those of the authors, myself, and then my colleagues from EFD, Kenya and Ghana, and not necessarily representing any view of SIDA or EFD team. So this is what we have from our end, and thank you for your attention. Any question and comment is very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salamawit. That is such a expansive and comprehensive project you did. There's so much to unpack and to learn from. So we now move to the Q&A session. Yes, please congratulate and applaud our speakers. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and engage with us. I think, Salamawit, you can stop sharing the screen so we can all see each other. Yeah, Fred, please.
Yes.
Thank you so much. My name is Fred from EFD Uganda. Thank you, our presenter, for the wonderful presentation, because the study is very timely. And yes, it speaks volumes, because I have observed some of the results resonate very well with Uganda's statistics, especially concerning women labor participation in manufacturing and industry. The numbers are lower compared to that of men, but also even in terms of productivity. Your results have indicated that productivity in terms of gender differentials, whereas we can see that productivity is increasing across both genders, it is lower for women compared to those of men. So that has left me tickling my mind, because gender dynamics are wide, including the gender roles, which are outside the workspace, but they affect women from within the households, given the care burdens they might be having and other domestic kind of activities. So beyond ownership and management, are there gender differences in the adoption of specific energy efficient technologies or innovations that you were able to explore? And possibly could these differences explain part of the productivity gap observed among women-owned firms? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So should we collect all, or how do you want it to go, Marta? Or should we?
I think you can just reply directly, and then we'll go to the next one.
Okay. Thank you very much. And it's very interesting and then valid question. Yes, a difference has been revealed, and then many surprising results have been witnessed of the result. But gender is very strong word, but in terms of indicators and then attributing and then constructing, we're not still satisfied. In terms of showing gender or gender empowerment, and then to see how it has an impact in terms of explaining the difference or the relationship between variables of interest. Something that we're missing in this study is we haven't conducted any primary we haven't used primary instruments, which are very critical. Numbers cannot speak everything about relationships. So when we find in some projects, when the fund is available, and then when the duration of the study allows, you go to the field, you do the regression preliminary analysis, and then you want to explain why this difference is being revealed, so that you learn from the mouths of those who will give us the first-hand information. So based on the literatures, we wanted to see why this difference has happened. Literature show that variation can occur, but not most has been explaining a lot, but in terms of capacities, leadership capacities, or in terms of engagement, organizing the resources. So we cannot say anything at this stage because we haven't done any primary analysis. So it's kind of guessing and then giving a hypothesis that needs a further elaboration. And then this is one of the major constraints that we have, because we don't have a qualitative instrument that explains why the deviation come across. Another challenge that we came across is we wanted to represent gender using many variables, but the data will not allow us to do so. That we were very much limited in terms of ownership, participation, managing, so that we don't believe those are the only indicators that will show gender, but instead of having nothing, having something, and then to have a starting point to show relationship of interest, and then to even indicate we have a gap in terms of indicators, and then measurement will guide for further investigation, and then also to go more in depth in terms of explaining using primary instruments, so that we can comprehend why the deviation took place, and then it would be better to explain that the deviation using generated data instead of guessing or based on other evidences. So this is what I can reflect on, but we can have a further discussion of this meeting, and then it's really valid question, and then thank you.
Thanks. Yuan?
Thank you, Salma, with a very interesting presentation. So first, I have a comment, and then a question, maybe the typical annoying question I usually have. So first, the comment is that very interesting result, because I see female-owned firms appear to be less energy efficient than male-owned firms. But the energy efficiency factor contributes similarly to productivity in both groups. So I think this generates a very interesting policy implication, is that policy should focus more on improving women entrepreneurs' access to energy, for example, infrastructure, finance, and technology, rather than promoting innovation alone. So yeah, that's kind of my feeling from that. So then the annoying part, given the analysis relies on pooled cross-sectional, you used the World Bank Enterprises survey data from these 4 countries. So, it also depends on, also a question I noticed that Gunnar put in the chat box. He asks which publication, which journal you are going to send for publication. So yeah, how confident can we be in interpreting the observed relationships as causal? So because you didn't spend much effort in explaining the causality and the direction, endogeneity, that's kind of a question, because this, to me, it's already very interesting associations, relationships and correlations. Yeah, and also, 4 countries, so there must be like a country contextual or context differences. So all these things relate to causal impact and the directions. So maybe that's what you want to improve or revise. So yeah, just for you to consider. Yeah.
Okay. Should I go? Thank you very much. Before replying to your question, I really would like to thank you very much for making this happen, because you've been following if we want to present and then organizing everything. So it has been your effort which bring this webinar on board. So I would like to give credit for that. And then, yes, our findings, I totally accept your comment, which is constructive. And then in terms of synthesizing the implications, not only innovation is helping productivity in the case of manufacturing firms. Instead, we can also promote women entrepreneurship at the same time. So that I totally agree with that. In terms of pool data, we couldn't do anything, but we were cautious about endogeneity. So at the report, we included a separate section of endogenous switching regression to control for endogeneity. I mean, there is nothing as such about perfect methodology trying to control everything. All has their constraints, but we minimize the damage, and then we want to synthesize key implication out of the relationship of interest based on the analysis. So we added endogenous switching regression, and then tried to see the same relationship, the same exercise that we've done to see if innovation augmented energy efficiency, and then if energy efficiency contributed to productivity, and then our study or our finding is consistent with what we've done, so that we little bit minimize the damage of endogeneity, and then try to make our findings to be a little bit stronger instead of simply leaving it as it is, and then including additional regression, and then it will help us to make it methodologically robust in terms of showing the relationship. So that we were also cautious and then worried about endogeneity, and then we try to introduce that in our case. So it's complement to what we found on the study. But thank you very much, and then a valid point.
Great. Gunnar, you're next.
Thanks. Interesting stuff. Just two thoughts. The first thing is that the data is overall manufacturing, right? So it's actually a lot of subsectors. So I think one thing that you might want to do in order not to exaggerate the explanatory power of gender here, my gut feeling is that women are focusing more on certain subsectors, right? So certain kinds of companies. So maybe what you are picking up here is rather this difference in technology between the different subsectors, if they are, as I would assume, overrepresented in particular trades, if you like. So if I don't know how disaggregated the data is, if you can tease that out. But that if it's possible, I would recommend that. The other thing, and maybe it just went too fast with the descriptives. I'm curious about these terms of energy efficiency and energy use efficiency and outages. So is it your energy efficiency variable? Is that outages, or did I misunderstand the descriptives?
Okay, thank you for the first comment, which we should iterate and then exercise and then to disaggregate as much as possible. We exhausted as we can, but we will also look further into it. In terms of the descriptive, our focus was on the score using the stochastic frontier, but still we just don't want to overlook and then skip the other indicators or proxies of energy. So they are more of additional indicators, but our focus is the other one. So we have a comprehensive way of showing those who's been used by other researchers plus what we've done, so that would be
Okay,
exhaustive.
so your energy efficiency is some proportion of value of output or something like that rather. It's something else. Okay, good.
Yes.
Then I'll leave it over to Mark then.
With Mark?
Yeah, sorry. And I also joined late. I'm kind of traveling right now, so I missed some of the presentation, and apologies if you covered some of these things and I was trying to catch up also during your presentation, but enjoyed what I heard. Um, so, a couple of questions that I had, mostly descriptive questions, but maybe I'll just pick up on the first one, which is not as descriptive, because I think it dovetails with what Gunnar was just saying. I mean, I think that it's likely that female-led enterprises are different in some substantial ways from male-led enterprises. So, not just sector, but also like, how large they are and, various other things. And, obviously you're controlling for as much as you can, but it seems like it would be valuable, at least somewhere in this story, and maybe you have it in the paper, to talk about, how are they different exactly? And be a little bit more systematic about that. Um, and then, tying that to your empirical strategy for the gender analysis. So that was one sort of kind of general comment that I had, and perhaps you've done it. The second comment that I'll make is just building on Yuan Yuan's comment, because um, I think what you said was, you're trying to minimize the endogeneity bias as much as possible, um, and with the switching regression. But, you know, I would just urge you to be a little bit cautious in how you present whether these are really causal results. And, perhaps the endogenous switching can help you in some ways, and maybe it's robust with the results that you had, but it's not, a solution necessarily to all of the issues. So, this is uncovering interesting patterns in the data, and presenting, more of uh, a need for causal research in this domain, right? And sort of laying out that case, saying that, you do the best you can with this data, but, here are things that other researchers or maybe even yourself should build on in the future to deal with the causal attribution problem here. And then so the last thing is just my questions on the descriptives. So my understanding is that the World Bank enterprise surveys, and I haven't used them, so I might be wrong, they are not sort of a random sample of firms, right? So I think they stratify based on size and various things when they do their sampling. And so I was wondering if what you present are nationally representative results with the sampling weights accounted for, or if you're just presenting the raw data. And if you don't do the nationally representative results, I think that's fine, but just be very clear about that. And maybe you said it early on, but I missed it or I wasn't there yet. The other sort of suggestion is just to do more with the sectors, right? So I think in your regressions, you don't control for sector, but you might want to at least have some sector kind of fixed effects or, something like that to absorb some of the sector specific issues, because I suspect that efficiency and other stuff is very different across sectors, as well as productivity. And then the last thing is I was surprised by some of your descriptives on innovation. The data look like basically there's zero innovation at the beginning of these enterprise surveys in like almost all the countries. And then you have, firms that take up some of these innovations. But so is that the way that innovation is being measured here? Or were these firms like really just like dinosaur firms back at the beginning of this survey, and now they are doing some innovation? I mean, it's kind of weird that they all basically start at zero, and so as a result, that could lead to some strange results in your analysis. So I was just wondering about that.
Should I go? Should I go? Okay. Thank you very much. First, I'm so much happy because you told me that you will not be coming because you'll be traveling, but you managed to come, so it's an honor to have you. And then your feedbacks as well, which are very relevant and then constructive, which will put the findings to be more robust and then appealing in terms of showcasing the implication in terms of policy implication or for the contribution in terms of publication as well. So to begin with the comments, I totally take the comments that you gave. And then we'll work on that. But in terms of explaining the difference, we took it, our indicator, we believe that our indicator is not as strong, but is a good starting point because we haven't found much in terms of trying to show gender coming on board with innovation, energy efficiency, and then productivity. But what we could do is in terms of majority of ownership, and then the participation, and then we haven't observed much of a difference, but we were not much giving or exerting effort in terms of explaining the difference, but we implicitly assume that there wouldn't be much difference, or the results would show us something if there is a difference. But we found out that in terms of male and then female owned, even if both contribute to productivity, still the productivity is less in the case of female owned, so that we should dig more deep in terms of the existing data, if we don't have primary instruments to attribute the difference, but we can still go and then disaggregate and then see the nature of male dominated firms and then female dominated and then owned firms, so that we could attribute still, even if we cannot do a causal explanation about it, we can at least the descriptive statistics and then the difference of the features would give us more explanation. In terms of the causality, I totally agree. We didn't have even any plan to do this additional regression, but thanks to the comment of our reviewers after we submitted our report, one of the constructive feedback that has been given is they were also cautious about endogeneity, and then they wanted us to explain how we would check for that, and then of the different methodologies we went for the endogenous switching regression, provided that we don't also believe that that's an enough strategy to give the attribution for causality of variable of interest. So we should deep digger if we want to strongly attribute and then tell more about the causality, so that I totally buy that idea. But we also included this based on the comments of our reviewers, because they ask, okay, there are coefficients and then explaining, so it's a good start to show and then mainstream gender, but how about the androgeneity of variable of interest? So that's why we jumped on that. In terms of representativeness, the samples, we try to introduce weight. We already exhaustively acknowledged the limitation of the data set while we do the polling. We didn't have a panel. They're not following the same firms as the reviewers' concern was attrition, and then provided that we pulled it. It's not a worry that we have that, but in terms of to make it nationally representative, we introduce weights and then also the measurability bias. So as much as possible, we technically try to control, yet still it will have its own limitation. In terms of sector control, very true, not all sectors are the same, and then similar in terms of those indicators, so that it would have been wise in terms of controlling for sectors as we control for the countries and then the years as well, so that we might have come across with a different result, or maybe consistent with what we found, but it's strategic and then really true to control for, as you suggested. In terms of innovation, that's our starting point. It's not that they were not innovating and then at the end of the day they started innovating, but we have a limited time period, 2 and then 3, and then we might have no innovation data, and then on the next year we have 200 firms with a data of product innovation, process innovation, marketing innovation. So that's why we try to descriptively show, but we don't have any coefficient or correlation analysis, so that we cannot speak about it that much, but that's how the data is being there. If I understood what you reflected on that, but I'll be happy when you have time on other meetings to take as much comment as possible and then refine to the better version of our deliverable, and then even engage in specific